review for 1408 with John Cusack, based on a Stephen King short story of the same name. So author Michael Enslin specializes in debunking paranormal occurrences, checks into the fabled room 1408 in the Dolphin Hotel in New York City, settles in, and soon confronts gruesome terror, or genuine terror. This is a movie I've seen in a bunch of times. There's a director's cut and a theatrical. I watched the director's cut. I think it changes the ending. So I'd probably recommend the director's cut, but so yeah, he writes these books like top 10, haunted motels, top 10 haunted hotels, whatever, top 10 haunted bed and breakfasts on the East Coast, and he's very successful at that. He has a wife that he separated from. They had a little daughter who I think had cancer and died, and it kind of ruined the relationship, he says to her, like, every time I looked at you I saw her. So basically ruined the relationship. He has a lot of problems, at least emotionally, and he's finishing his book, another book on this. I think he just needs one more chapter, and someone sends him in the mail, "Don't enter 1408," and it's this. I think it's the Dolphin Hotel in New York City. So he calls them, tries to get a room, 1408. They won't give him a room. He's like, "Well, what about next week?" Nope. Well, what about in a month? No. What about in 2 months? No. So then he goes to his editor, who has a legal department, and they look into it, and it's against the law to refuse service to someone for a functioning hotel room if you can afford it, So they basically force them to give him the room. He goes there. Samuel L. Jackson is like the manager of the place. Really nice little performance by Samuel L. Jackson. He's not in it that much, but very memorable. I really like the scene when he's about to check in. He walks up to him. He's all, nice. Hey, if you want some, the best restaurants, we'll make reservations for you. I can get you tickets to, a basketball game or whatever you want. He's very nice to him. He says, "Can you come back in my office?" And he says, "Okay." So he goes back there, and he's begging him to not stay in 1408. He's like, "Stay in any other room, just don't stay in that one." And he's like, "This is kind of odd," but he doesn't, like it says, he doesn't believe in anything, basically. He's like, "Look, I've stayed in like mass murderers, like right where they killed, their family or whatever, right where they did all these terrible things." He's like, I've been in, I took a bath in the bath where whatever, some terrible thing happened. And he's like, "And nothing." He's like, I've seen nothing." So he doesn't believe in it. And he's like, Samuel Jackson's like, "Okay, well, there's been all these deaths. I think there's been like 11 or 12 or something in the room." And he's like, "Yeah, I already know all those. I already researched it all." And then he's like, "Well, there's actually been more deaths than that, but I don't know, for some reason they weren't reported." I don't really get that part. Like, you think if there's a death, I mean, then the police have to get involved, and I don't know. He opens this ledger. There's been like 50 other murders in that room or connected to that room. And And he's like, "Hey, I'll let you look at all this. This is like no one has this info, so this would be great for your book." He's like, "Stay in 1407." Um, he's like, "No one would know the difference. Like the layout's exactly the same. They look exactly the same." And he's like, he offers him some whiskey, some good whiskey, and he's drinking it. There's a funny line where he's like, Samuel Jackson's like, well, you do drink, right? And he's like, of course I do. I said I'm a writer. Because this is Stephen King, and Stephen King, famously, you know, huge alcoholic, uh, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, maybe, and other stuff too. Just like it seemed like he'd do anything, but definitely liquor. And he's trying to convince him, but he won't. So he takes him up there, and he enters the room, and at first he's like, "This is it," but obviously things go bad. So this is a movie I like. I don't think it's not amazing, but it's not that long of a movie. It's interesting, some of the things that happen in the room. I mean, right away when he's in the room, one of the first creepy things that happens is he's looking out the window, and um, well, he was on his bed. He was on the bed, so he kind of messes up the bed, ruffles it. He also was in the bathroom, and he takes some toilet paper out, so he kind of messes up some of the bathroom. And then he opens the window and he sticks his head out, and then this alarm goes off and starts singing this song. I forget what song it is. And then he smashes his head on the window, and then he turns around and the bed is totally done up, like like turn down service at a hotel. There's two chocolates on the pillow, which weren't there before. He goes in the bathroom, and there's a new toilet paper roll, and it's all like done up fancy, like in some hotels, like they do. So he's like, he's like, "Whoa, that's a little odd." So he starts running around the room looking for the cleaning lady or whatever, and of course there's no one. So like one of the quotes, I think he's like has a recorder, he's recording these things, and he's like ghost turn down service. He's like a little spooky or something. Thought that was funny. John Cusack's very good in this. Very good actor. Very likable, funny guy. Um, he just never. I mean, he's in a lot of stuff, but I don't know. Especially after this. I mean, what is he in? I think he's in like 2012. Um, I think maybe his movies just don't make that much money. I mean, he's in Say Anything, Gross Point Blank, High Fidelity. Those are like his most famous ones. Hot Tub Time Machine 2. I only saw the first one. The Raven, I heard that was terrible. But yeah, he's in a bunch of movies I haven't seen that don't look very good. Um, but he's a good actor. He's an actor I always thought deserved a little better, but just seems like his career never really took off for some reason. I mean, this movie made money. Box office 133 million, budget 25 million. So it made money, but yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me. I wish he was in like more bigger budget movies, but because this isn't that big a budget, 25 million. Um, but yeah, these creepy things just keep happening. They kind of start off small, I'd say. But let's see. Like, yeah, and then he's also looking out the window, and it smashes, cuts his hand. He starts bleeding everywhere. He goes in the bathroom and turns on the water. The water's boiling hot, burns his hand. Um, he thinks there's someone watching him in the vent, which then later he goes in the vent and there is like this half dead zombie guy up there. But then it's like, then it's gone. So it's like all in his mind. So, so he starts to get more freaked out, more freaked out. There's a pretty funny scene when he opens like the mini bar, and then there's a little Samuel L. Jackson in there, and he's like yelling at him and screaming at him, and then he and then they cut back, and it's just him screaming at a mini bar with the food in there, and then he starts like hitting all the food and knocking it out. So slowly, this room is, obviously haunted, or as Samuel L. Jackson says, the room is just evil. So then he's like, yeah, after he gets cut and injured and some other things happen, he's like, I've had enough. Tries to leave, won't leave. He can't leave the room. Um, and before that, the AC wasn't working. It was like really hot in the room. He called. They sent a mechanic up, or and the guy won't enter the room. He tells them just to take the thing off and tap. I think it's like a mercury thing. It gets stuck. Guy won't enter the room. So then he's like, I've had enough, and he tries to leave the room. The door won't open. Then a really creepy part I thought was when the his alarm starts doing a countdown from 60 minutes. So it's like, what's going to happen at the end of the 60 minutes? He won't leave. He now calls them on the phone. The door's stuck. The lady is it's not the same person he talked to before. She's like creepy, basically like you're going to stay here forever. And then later, there's only one way to leave the room. But yeah, it's a pretty good horror movie. Um, it's very Stephen King, definitely. A lot of things that you would see in other Stephen King movies. In a way, this is always kind of, to me, it always kind of reminded me of like a spiritual sequel in a way to The Shining, because it's very similar. In The Shining, it's the whole hotel, but there is that one room that's like super haunted, and this is kind of like that room. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of The Shining. Maybe this is Stephen King's way of getting another Shining movie made, because famously he hates Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, which I mean, I get it, it's different than the book, but I think the movie's brilliant. But um so yeah, so he can't leave the room, and everything's going to hell. He's crawling through the ducts up uh, above him. There's like this half zombie thing starts attacking him. He starts to hear his daughter's voice. He tries to contact his ex-wife who lives in New York City, telling her to bring the police. And then later on, the room's like, oh, she's gonna be here any minute. So then the room's gonna like absorb her too. He then um goes unconscious. And I think this is the difference between the two. So in the theatrical cut, if I remember correctly, he goes unconscious, and earlier in the movie, he's swimming or he's surfing on the beach, and then he almost dies. He totally wipes out. He gets pushed onto the shore. You know, he's coughing up water, and then soon after that, he gets the invitation for room 1408. But when he's in the room, he goes unconscious right before the clock's about to run out, and then he goes back to him on the beach. But then he's in the hospital for like a few weeks. His wife, well, I guess there's still his wife. They're separated. Comes there. They talk to each other. They kind of rekindle their relationship. He goes and visits his father, who he kind of has like a rocky relationship with. He's like in a old folks home. Um, and he goes and talks to him because his dad was angry at him that he separated from his wife right after his kid died, which makes sense. I mean, it's like, I mean, because he's like the dad's like, you know, she lost a child too, and now she's gonna lose you. And I mean, yeah, it makes sense, you know. So he's angry at him about that, but he's like, me and her are kind of getting back together, I think. So he's like telling her to stay with him, and I think that's where it ends in the theatrical cut. But in the director's cut, I think this is the difference. Then, and spoilers, obviously, but anyways, the director's cut, then he wakes up, he's still in the room. He looks at the clock, it counts down again. You know, he gets a telephone call, he picks it up, and he's like, well, the ladies, and it's all very like customer service, kind of like fake, you know, person on the other line. They're like, yes, sir. If you would not like to experience this, you know, every 60 minutes for the rest of your life, there's only one way to exit the room, you know, which obviously is pointing towards something. But um so he's like, you know, screw it, and he burns the room down. Now there are some questions about, it's like, the thing I don't understand is, why not just close the room? You know, and then Samuel Jackson gives this explanation of, well, there are the corporation that owns us. They don't want us to bow the knee to that, it, you know, admit that there's paranormal problems in the room, and it would be bad press. And I don't really understand that excuse. I mean, you could just take all the furniture out of the room, take everything out, and, you know, close it down and lock the door. I don't know, you know, put a bunch of locks on the door. So that excuse is a little weak. Um, I mean, I'm not sure you'd be open to like lawsuits because it's paranormal, but anyways. So that's a little odd. I mean, he even says like, he's like, what? So no one cleans the room ever or dusts it? And he's like, no, we're very professional. I think he says once a month he and a cleaning lady go up there, and he stands at the door, keeps the door open while she quickly cleans the room, and then they leave. And then he said unfortunately though, like a few years ago, a cleaning lady went in there, I think without his knowledge, the door got shut. She ended up I think sticking things in her eyes, gouging her eyes out. So yeah, it's not foolproof, but it's just like, why? And then he even said that he's like, why not just close the room? But and then he finally permanently closes the room by burning it down. And there's a hint at the end that maybe John Cusack is now gonna haunt Samuel L. Jackson. So, but if that is the difference between the theatrical and the director's cut, it's pretty lame. It's just like, oh, it was all in your head and it was all fake, and you're actually on the beach in California, you know. So, not very not a good ending really. But then this ending is, is very dark. So obviously they thought that that would play better for the theatrical audience, but the actual director's cut ending is the real ending, and yeah, it's very dark because he doesn't make it. So yeah. Now this director, it's like born in Sweden. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name, but I haven't seen any of the other stuff. He did The Right with Anthony Hopkins. But other than this, I don't think I've seen any of his other stuff. Well directed, I'd say. It's well shot. I mean, it's all almost in one room, but wasn't really bored during the movie. In the short Stephen King story 1408 upon the film is based, Katie Enslin is not a prominent figure, nor is her death discussed in detail. Instead, the book mentions Mike being a chronic chain smoker who had a brother who died of lung cancer. In the screenplay, Katie's name was originally to be Gracie, but this was later changed, and in the eventual film, Katie is implied to have terminal cancer. However, her illness is never explicitly stated. Yeah, in the movie, he like carries a cigarette in his ear, and he's like, "I used to be a big smoker, but I think he probably smokes one cigarette when he finishes a book. So he's about to finish this book. He'd smoke the cigarette." The melting telephone used in the scene. Oh yeah, that looked pretty cool. The melting telephone used in the scene in which Mike is attempting to persuade the room to leave his wife alone was saved as a prop under the title 1408. The telephone's melting effect was done by filming the components of the telephone with special blue markers attached so that the phone could have pieces of it removed through blue screen technology, after which CGI was used to make the phone to appear as if it was falling apart. Huh. I kind of thought they just like melted a phone. Seems like that'd be easier, but okay. John Cusack's second appearance in a Stephen King film adaptation. The first was Stand By Me. There are many references to the number 13 throughout the movie. The room is numbered 1408. Add each number together, it equals 13. The room is on the 14th floor, and the hotel skips the 13th floor. Yeah, which is odd. I forget what he said about that, because I did notice that. I was like, wait, 12? No, there's no 13, just 14. So the room is technically on the 13th floor. The room's key locks also has a 6214 sketched into it, which adds up to 13. And the first death was in 1912, which adds to 13. Also, if you add 19 plus 12, you get 31, which is reversed as 13. Even the month and the year the movie's released, June 2007, sums up to 13. The exact date of the film was released in the United States was June 22nd, 2007. 1408 was actually quite accurate in stating that there are laws in place within the United States forcing hotels to accept any guest. While this does not necessarily mean they can request any room they want and stay there as portrayed in the film, innkeepers and motel owners have a legal duty to accept guests. The hotel owner has the right to reject or expel persons whom he or she reasonably deems objectionable. It has to be objectively reasonable, though. Claiming the hotel room the guest wants is haunted would not be likely to be found in court of law to be reasonable basis. Yeah. There is also anti-discrimination laws in place to protect hotel guests of protected groups. That makes sense. These guest duty laws for hotels have been established by earlier cases. 1408, if it were a real life scenario, virtually the only way Mike Enslin could be rejected or removed would be if he had no intention of being a guest. If he were being a nuisance and damaging property, or if he refused to pay due fees, or if he were suspected to injure the hotel's business or guests in a hazardous, uncomfortable, or dangerous situation. If room 1408 was deemed damaged or unsafe, Enslin would not be able to stay there. However, claiming a room is haunted by ghosts doesn't count, nor does there being earlier deaths or crimes in the room stand up as a reasonable basis to bar a guest from using a particular room. Makes sense to me, yeah. Probably good laws to have. Keanu Reeves was attached to play the lead role of the film, but then dropped out. That's interesting. I think it's better with Cusack, but I like Keanu. Enslin, while looking for the book of the murders, unknowingly circles the 14th floor and ends up back at that elevator he got off. The classical music that is playing in the elevator was featured in the beginning of Father's Day, the first segment, which was part of the anthology collection Creepshow. The screenplay for that film was written by Stephen King, and the segment after Father's Day featured as the lead none other than Stephen King himself. The frequency that the electric clock radio set is 104.8 megahertz. In Variety interview, John Cusack discussed his process for the film. He referenced taking LSD and basing much of his performance on how he felt and behaved while tripping. Yeah, there is a part in the movie when he thinks that the alcohol that Samuel Jackson gives him has something in it, or maybe the chocolates because he eats one of them. But the axe the fireman uses to break into the burning room 1408 is in fact the same axe Jack Nicholson uses to get through the door in The Shining, according to the director. Really? Wow. All right. I guess that would be in the Warner Brothers archives. I think The Shining's. I think a lot of Kubrick movies are Warner Brothers. The room 1408 was created as a set, was not a real hotel room, allowing for more ease of access while filming. Max von Sydow was offered a cameo role. I wonder what he would have played. Maybe Samuel L. Jackson's role. Oh, but that's about it. I think it's a good horror movie. Nothing, it's very Stephen King. You've kind of seen it before. It's a haunted room, haunted house, but I think it's well done. So I like it. If you could do me a favor and smash that like button, that'd be great. And I'll see you next time.